Since I was a child, it's been my dream that cloning would someday be widespread. Ones that could think creatively, that are immensely superior to droids. Totally obedient, taking any order without question. Magnificent, wouldn't it be? Unfortunately, we're nowhere close to having a clone army. At this time, we haven't cloned any humans, but they have cloned macaques, apparently. And there are some companies that clone animal companions, such as dogs, cats, and horses. So this is the controversial topic I'll be talking about today. Should you clone your dog? In case you're unfamiliar with how cloning works, I'll briefly explain the type of cloning you would be paying for should you decide to clone your dog. The method is called somatic cell nuclear transfer. Somatic cells are the cells that make up an organism. They contain two full sets of chromosomes, unlike sperm and egg cells. Scientists will place the somatic cell from the desired donor into the egg cell of the surrogate mother. The egg cell has already had its nucleus and DNA removed, so it can be replaced by the somatic cell. The egg cell develops into an embryo with the same genes as its donor, and then it is implanted into the surrogate mother's uterus. The first animal they did this with was a sheep named Dolly, and then nearly 10 years later, scientists cloned their first dog, an Afghan hound. They named the clone Snuppy, and he lived for 10 years. He died of the same kind of cancer his donor had, but he died 2 years younger than his donor. In 2017, Snuppy was cloned to test any health concerns that clones may have. Viagen Pets, a company that clones pets in the United States, has made the claim that clones are no more susceptible to health problems than any other dogs. This science is still fairly new, so I don't know how true that statement is. Who knows? The opposite may be said in 10 to 20 years. Why might somebody wish to clone their dog? I can think of several reasons, but what I really want to know is what reason may actually be worth $50,000, the price to clone a dog. The best possible reason I can think of is to preserve critically endangered breeds. This is one of the most desired uses for cloning, with hopes of saving endangered species or bringing back extinct ones. The same can be used for extremely rare dog breeds. 2 Yakutian Lycas were cloned to help preserve the breed. And in 2020, one of the clones had a litter of 7 puppies. So yes, Ghee is that rare. This can help save a lot of dog breeds that are hanging on by a thread. The Otterhound, the Chinook, and other breeds that are hard to find these days may be saved by cloning. One reason for cloning, as stated by Viagen Pets' website, is to extend the relationship with people's beloved pets. They continue by saying it's difficult for many dog owners to imagine life without their dogs. Viagen Pets admits that clones aren't exactly the same as the original when it comes down to learned experiences, but they do claim they have the same intelligence, temperament, and appearance. So, are you actually continuing the relationship with your dog? Doesn't sound like it. I've had relatives who get a dog that has the same breed and the same looks as their last dog, sometimes within a week of losing them, and end up giving it the same name. It just doesn't seem healthy. If you hear about a mother who lost their child going out and adopting a similar-looking kid and renaming them the same name as their deceased child, you wouldn't think that was healthy, would you? Learning to deal with loss is an important part of life. Believe me, I know. This Friday will be the 1-year memorial of my dog Tilly's passing. I always said every time I thought she was close to death, she'd end up living 2 more years. Then one night, she couldn't stand up. I showed her to my mom, and she said that her time had come. She told me to hold her in my arms while she went to go get a box and some towels in case she were to pass on her own during the night, so she can be comfortable. While waiting for her to come back, Tilly's life was flashing before my eyes. I saw so many of the fond memories I had with her, the ups and downs, and when I realized that was all about to end, I crumbled. I held her tighter, and begged her not to go as I began crying. I sat with her all night, wanting to spend every moment I could with her while I still could. It was hell. The hardest part of it was waiting. Sure, I wish I had many more years with her, but I also wanted her to go peacefully and as painlessly as possible. That night went so slowly. I told Tilly everything I could ever possibly want to tell her. I told her I loved her. I apologized for my shortcomings as a dog owner. I recounted my fondest memories of her. I even sang to her. The first time I checked the time, it wasn't even 11 o'clock. Every time I thought an hour passed to bring me closer to morning, closer to bring her to the vet to end her pain. It only ended up being 10 minutes since the last time I checked. I must have repeated everything I said to her several times over, accompanied with on and off crying. The vet couldn't see us until 2 p.m., and she wouldn't go by herself, so that meant even more waiting when the morning finally came. When it was time to take her, I showed her to Guy and Lola one last time so they could hopefully understand that she wasn't coming back. I didn't want to cry in the car because I didn't want to make my mom cry while she was driving. As soon as the car was parked, I began crying again. I told her goodbye one last time before she was euthanized, and that I loved her, and then she was gone. I held my tears on the ride home again, thanked my mother for driving me for staying strong, and then I spent time in my room to cry and mourn. Up until her passing, I was really considering having her DNA saved so I could clone her someday. I had Tilly since I was 4, and she had been with me since I was 20. So, believe me, I know living without your dog is unimaginable in my case. As an adult, I realized so many things I could have done to improve her life and possibly prolong it even further. I thought if she were cloned, I could atone for my shortcomings with her and by being better for her clone. Now I realize it doesn't have to be her. Me being a better dog owner for another dog won't change history. Tilly would still have been unsocialized with dogs, and she still would have had bad teeth from eating kibble. I can't change the past, but I can accept that and still dedicate myself to improving the lives of my current dogs and the dogs I have yet to bring into my life. I can do that for any dog. It doesn't have to be Tilly's clone. That's just my specific reason for not wanting to clone my dog. The clone won't be a continuation of the life of the original dog. It's just another dog that looks the same. The last reason I could think of for cloning a dog is to duplicate a dog with a unique trait for the purposes of either creating or improving a breed. Let's say you have a mixed breed dog, and this dog excels at a certain task like ratting or guarding. And it's not just good at this task. This dog is a great balance of proportion and drive that isn't seen in a purebred dog that performs the same task. Maybe it does the job differently and is able to perform said job in a different environment than usual. If this dog was neutered before you got it and you wanted to create a new breed that refines what your amazing dog does, then by all means clone it. Clone this amazingly unique dog that you want as a foundation animal, and carefully and ethically breed it to create a new uniformly structured breed. A critique from the Kennel Club is that when they first came out with Snuppy was that cloning merely duplicates a dog. The Kennel Club is dedicated to the improvement of the breeds they love. While widespread cloning would do nothing to improve a breed, cloning and saving the DNA of an exemplary healthy dog with desirable features may come in handy someday, especially if a healthy breeding stock proves to be hard to find in the future. Those are the reasons I could think of, but I also decided to look at Viagen Pet's client stories. I was surprised that I could only find a handful of people that actually clone their dog. Everyone else has only saved their dog's DNA. A lot of people save their dog's DNA with the intention of one day continuing the relationship with their dog. One person did actually save their healthy Doberman's DNA for the purposes of breeding. And I know this is going to sound cynical, but I felt like a very good portion of them were wasting their money. A lot of them were purebred dogs. And I've already established that a clone won't have the same experiences as the original, so why not just adopt the same breed again? The way they talked about their dogs sounded almost identical to interviews I've seen about dog breeders and about why they dedicated themselves to their dog breed, but instead they want to spend $50,000 on a clone. The average price of a dog is about $2,000. You could have the same breed for the rest of your life for less than $50,000. Chances are you'll have at least one dog that reminds you of the dog you lost. I'll bring it to a close now. Sorry if talking about Tilly's death felt random. I realize I never discussed how it happened before, and because it was such a difficult loss for me, and I normally cry whenever I count it. Still a very touchy subject. I cried while I was writing the script for this. I wanted to include it for people who still can't move on from their loss and explain why I didn't decide to go through with cloning. I'll create a poll to help me decide what group of dogs I'll talk about next. Let me know if there's any dog-related topics you'd like for me to talk about. Leave a comment. I enjoy hearing feedback. Would you ever clone your dog? Have a great day, and good soldiers follow orders.